Okay, here we go. All right. Good to see you. Good evening. If that's the part of the world you're in, it is the part of the world I'm in, here in California. It is 7 p.m. I am Tad, and I will be here for roughly the next hour reading. We are getting close to the end of the Dirty Streets of Heaven. Things are jumping off now, and you will have both an ending and a non-ending because, of course, this was the first of three books, and therefore, though there is definitely an ending point of this book, there are some things that remain unresolved, of course, which is why I wrote two more books. Happy Hour in Hell and Sleeping Late on Judgment Day, if I remember the names of my own books correctly. Anyway, so how are things for you? I hope they're well. We're doing fine here. We have all the usual stuff going on. We are reconciling dogs. We are taking care of rogue cats. Not rogue cats. They're transplant cats. Our daughter's cats who live with us. And what else are we doing? Deb is working on things. I am working on things. As I mentioned at great length last night when I was doing that reading, I am deeply involved in doing, it's not research. It's not, it's world building. It's world building. So I am, because I realized that the one thing that I was not satisfied with and that I was writing around in The Splintered Sun was my knowledge of Hernistery history and geography, which, I knew some things, obviously, since there are things that are already in the books, characters and places and all that, but it was not complete enough for what I felt I needed to do a proper job on The Splintered Sun. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And that's one of the reasons I pushed the publication back. And I am enjoying the heck out of it, which I always do with this kind of stuff, because world building is even more fun than writing. And I particularly enjoy inventing imaginary places and giving them a history and making it all fit together, or at least trying to make it all fit together so that it makes sense and feels real. That's the kind of key to world building. It doesn't matter how interesting your world is if it doesn't feel real within its own invented rules. And while the kind of stuff that I'm working on at the moment is much closer to the real world than some of the other stuff in the Ostenard books. In other words, less magical. But it's still very interesting to think these things through and go, okay, so where would the major cities be? And if there were cities at this stage of development, and if not, what would there be instead? And where would they be placed? And how would that affect the population? Where would the population centers be? What would be the main economy, the food crops, the et cetera, and also then you go into the history of the place. How did this turn out to be the way that it is? And what things have we mentioned in the past in other books that now have to be fleshed out a bit? All that kind of stuff. So that's really interesting. I enjoy doing that. And as I said many times, it's more fun than writing. Not that I don't enjoy writing, but I just enjoy world building even more because you can kind of go where your mind wants to go and follow things and go down very interesting and complicated pathways that don't always prove to be useful, but they certainly give you a chance to think about things, and sometimes they may not solve the thing you were trying to solve, but they give you answers to other things that you then find useful later on. I'll give you a quick example. I had been not troubled, but I had always wondered why some of my characters had names in Hernisteer, which is this place in Ostenard. This is, fantasy, kind of medieval, pre-medieval, well, not pre-medieval, but medieval type world situation. I'd always wondered, when I first started, I picked certain characters with names, or I gave certain characters names that almost sound more Welsh than Irish, whereas most of them are Irish Gaelic, and the place names and all that stuff. So me being me, I assume it happened for a reason. I don't know if that's true. It probably actually happened on pure whim. But I assumed it happened for a reason, and so then I have to create a historical movement of characters and peoples and ideas that would explain that. And it's really interesting. I enjoy doing it very much. Anyway, I talked about it a lot last night, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. I am, however, going to go and check in to see who has popped in and said hello. Isaac says that was Saturday. Well, technically it was already Sunday, Isaac, but if you're talking about me talking about it yesterday or early this morning, then as far as I was concerned, it was Saturday. So anyway, let me just see who all has checked in and said hello. I see Isaac. Hello, Isaac. Good to have you with us as always. Beth Kelleher. Hello, Beth. My buddy Ivan. Hello, Ivan. Good to see you. Angie. Angie is here. Hi, Angie. Susan Shamblin. A pleasure. Tim Speckens. Thank you for checking in. Emily. Hello. Keep up the fight. The good fight. Barban. Hello, Barb. Claudia, hello. Tracy, did I already say hello to you, Tracy? Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's all good. Who else? Ray Weatherford, hello, Ray. Good to see you. Jim Laubacker, hello, Jim. Laura Carosi, Mark Craigbaum, my ancient buddy. Ancient in the sense that our friendship goes back a long ways. Neither of us is quite ancient yet, or although we are definitely vintage. There's no question about that. And Christy Sanders. So hello, hello. Good to see you all. And nice of you to join me. I am going to bring you back up to date in just a moment with what's happening in the story, although by now it's just happening. It's happening all over. What was happening previously was, of course, the big conference between heaven and hell at the Ralston Hotel out on the edge of San Francisco Bay at the southernmost end of San Judas. And in the midst of that, Bobby is back into contact with Kaz. However, she seems to have thrown in her lot with Eligor, and she is doing her very best to dissuade Bobby that there was ever anything real between them, etc., etc. He is, in fact, rather hopelessly attached to her and the memory of their time together. But as she is leaving to go drive off with Eligor in the middle of the night, he is really having trouble letting go, and she gives him her locket, stuffs it in his coat pocket. And that locket, of course, was very significant to her because it contains a lock of hair from the little young lady's maid who her husband killed back 400 years ago when Casimira was alive. Anyway, on the way back in from that rather painful meeting, a bomb goes off at the Ralston. And in fact, Eligor has blown up his own hotel to stop the conference because he doesn't want people to find out how deeply involved he is in all of this stuff with the disappearing souls. So Bobby and Sam escape from the hotel being chased by Eligor's bully boys, whatever you want to call them, his armed men. Some of them are demons, maybe all of them. And they escape, get onto a boat out at the hotel's dock, and they take off in this cabin cruiser. They're being pursued by Howling Fell, and Howling Fell's men shooting guns at them. They evade them until they crash into the bank at the edge of the bay, or crash into an old wharf at the edge of the bay and get out, are captured by Howling Fell, escape, and they have been they go running through the cemetery where Bobby remembers that something that Fatback had told him by way of information, and he leads Sam to it. Sam rather reluctantly follows him, and they find the tombstone for Reverend Dr. Moses Habari, the person who has been the Magian Society's front guy in all of this. And Sam is shocked and discomfited that Bobby seems to know all about it, and Bobby, of course, is shocked and upset that his friend Sam is somehow involved with these people without ever telling him. And it's a real trauma for him, but of course they're being chased by these guys, these demons and stuff with guns in Howling Fell. They are finally caught at the edge of the cemetery just before Howling Fell executes Sam and drags Bobby back to hell, or to hell. The Galu shows up, and Howling Fell's soldiers or guards or whatever you want to call them, private army, make the mistake of firing on it. The Galu goes ape crap and sucks off Howling Fell's head, opens his mouth, which is full of flame, and basically bites or sucks off the top of Howling Fell's head, and then kills all these other guys while Bobby and Sam are running for their lives. That's basically where we are. They have escaped across the bridge to the island that used to be a local amusement park, but it's been shuttered for years. And they're running through the amusement park trying to stay ahead of the Galu, and they finally decide the only way they can have a chance against it is to get into the water, because the Galu is burning hot and at least seems to be slightly less dangerous in the water, although it still doesn't stop it. And Bobby dives into this scummy pool. The Galu comes in after him, grabs him. And Sam has fallen down along the way and has been knocked out. And that's what's going on at this point where we rejoin the story. So, let me go back here. Okay. So I'm going to go back about 3 paragraphs or so just to catch people up. I am no Olympic swimmer. My superiors gave me a good body, but not Superman's. The Galu had speed and strength far beyond any human frame, even one on loan to an angel. As I tried to dart away again, it reached out and caught me. I could feel the skin of my ankle blistering. I did my best to turn and shoot at it, hoping I had 1 round left and that the 5.7 would fire underwater, but some garbage floating in the pool had tangled itself with my trigger finger, and before I could get it untangled, the monster yanked me toward it and dragged me upward. It was dangling me upside down by one leg as it surfaced and thrashed its way toward the shallower end where it could stand up. The demon beast's skin was black, smooth as a dolphin's, and smelled like melting rubber and sulfur. Even soaking wet, the thing was painfully hot, and as it stood there, dripping up to its belly in the water, little flames began to run along its head and shoulders as the remaining moisture steamed away. I fought with all my strength, but couldn't wriggle loose. The pain of my ankle was so intense that I could only pray that there really was 1 bullet left, so I could put it into my own skull and end the agony. The Galu had dived into a full pool and swallowed a pound of silver and still barely broke stride. I had nothing else to try. Helpless, that's the word. But instead of ripping my head off or burning me to ashes, the Galu lifted me up and began to open its mouth, which kept opening and opening until it was a gaping hole, its distended lower jaw almost touching its chest. This time, instead of flames, I saw nothing inside it. Nothing. Not the emptiness of an open gullet, but the void itself, belching out empty, freezing cold, despite the heat of the Galu's body. A bottomless pit, stinking of oblivion. And then I realized that this demon wasn't going to carry me back to Eligor. It was going to send me back. It was going to swallow me right down that horrible throat into hell. I struggled to get my gun up, but the thing was clutching me against its chest, and I couldn't lift my arms above my shoulders. The tangling object wrapped around my trigger finger slid into the palm of my gun hand. It was Kaz's silver locket, hard and smooth against my skin. Her parting gift or her last lie. It seemed appropriate that it had kept me from firing. Then I suddenly realized what it was made from. When Orban warned me how tough the Galu was, how hard it would be to kill even with the bullets he'd just sold me, he'd said I need something more. Not just ordinary silver. Special. What else did I have with even a chance of fitting that bill? But Kaz's locket was only special if it meant something, if I let it mean something. I had to believe there was a reason it was in my hand in that moment, not lying in the debris at the bottom of the pool. Which meant what? Faith? All this flashed through my head in an instant as the thing began lifting me toward its cold, steaming maw. As the stink washed over me, I could feel the monster's fingers cracking my ribs, even as they roasted my skin like a Christmas goose. In between screams of pain, I kicked the monster as hard as I could, but it was like kicking a steam shovel. Still, I somehow managed to work my other hand loose and grabbed the little silver locket, then pressed it against the hot, rubbery expanse of the Galu's chest, right where its heart should be, if it had one. I rammed the barrel of the automatic against the locket, said a prayer that didn't really have any words, mostly that I still had a bullet in the chamber, and pulled the trigger. The blast rocked me, as if I'd been struck by lightning. I felt the pit spawn's molten blood spurt burning onto my chest as the creature roared and thrashed. Then it flailed through the scummy water toward the side of the pool, flinging me away as if I no longer mattered. I narrowly missed the concrete lip, landed hard against the tiles, and slid to within a few yards of the place where Sam lay. The Galu was making terrible sounds, bending where no living thing should bend, writhing as though it was tearing itself apart inside. But it managed to pull itself out and crawl close enough to us that its huge, twitching black fingers nearly closed on me before it finally stopped moving. I watched it long enough to make certain it was dead, or whatever happened to things like that when you shot them in whatever passed for their important organs. Then I fell back and stared up at the broken ribs of the roof, gasping and shivering uncontrollably. My sides were on fire, and my ribs stabbed at me every time I breathed. The gun was still clutched in my hand like a wrecked ship's spar in the grip of a drowned man. I may even have cried for a moment before I rolled onto my side and puked up a belly's worth of whatever had been in that horrible pool. Then I surrendered to the darkness growing in my head. Sam was stirring beside me when my brain began to work again. He didn't ask any questions, but his eyes got appropriately wide when he saw the immense black shape of the dead Galu, the last thin wisps of steam rising from its skin as its internal furnaces shut down. "Somebody gave me a gift," I offered by way of explanation. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Sam rolled over and sat up, holding his head as though his hands were all that was keeping it attached. I know we need to talk, Bobby," he said at last. "Let's get out of here. My place. We can clean up, get something on those burns, then I'll tell you everything." We both heard the telltale sound of a gun being cocked. It echoed from the walls of the roofless hall as if someone had banged on them with a stick. "No, I think you'd better talk right here, Samariel," a voice said, "because I really want to hear this. Oh, and by the way, I've got a gun, and I'm pretty sure I've got the only bullets in the room." Chapter 38, The Third Way. "You?" I said. "Really?" Clarence looked at me, but he kept the strange little gun pointed at Sam, which didn't really make sense. Surprised or disappointed? He was playing it very tough, but there was a telltale tremor in his gun hand. "Depends, I guess. How did you find us out here?" "Hold on," he said, "before anybody does any more talking. I just want to mention that this is a needle gun full of some kind of South American plant toxin, Sam, so if you try to do something dramatic, like kill yourself, I'll drop you with it and you'll be paralyzed for hours. And I can make the shot, too. I've been practicing." He looked down at the tightened corpse of the Galu. "Wow. Did you do that, Bobby? That must have been tough." Hold on. Why would Sam want to kill himself?" I demanded. "Because he's got access to at least one other body," Clarence said. "Habari's." Startled, I looked at Sam, who shrugged. "Wait a minute," I said. "Habari was you?" Who did you think it was? He asked me. I thought you knew. Fuck's sake, I thought that was why you took me to that headstone. I knew you had something to do with all this Magian society stuff, but I thought Habari might be, well, Leo, because they both died about the same time. You're talking about our Leo? From the harps? Sam shook his head. As far as I know, he's dead and we're not getting him back. And Habari died a year or so after Leo. But Leo was involved, indirectly. Well, wait a minute. I turned back to Junior, who was still trying to perfect his I'm in control stance. This is going too fast for me. How did you find us here? Clarence had the grace to look a little embarrassed. Sam's phone is hacked. I can always find out where he is. I had some help from upstairs on that. You were tracking Sam all this time? Not me? I looked at Sam. So you lied to me. It wasn't me he was spying on. Shit, B, he said. I lied to you about a lot of things. Yeah, the kid's been keeping an eye on me all along. Some of our bosses were getting suspicious. Then something else occurred to me, and I turned back to Clarence. But Sam lost his phone earlier tonight, long before we got here, so how did you track us to Shoreline Park? Clarence stared back, but he was hesitating. I bugged your phone too, he admitted at last. After I got here, I just followed the noise. If he'd had access to my phone, he might know everything, even about Kaz. This wasn't good at all. So Temuel was just double bluffing me? You've been working for our bosses all this time? That still doesn't explain how you got here, kid. You can't drive, or did you lie about that too? Now Clarence looked really guilty. I found a ride. I laughed despite myself. And is what's-her-name, your nice old landlady, sitting out there in her Continental, keeping the heater running till you get back? He scowled. You don't know everything, Bobby. I've been renting from them because Bert has an indoor shooting range in his basement. They let me practice down there. He turned to Sam. Now it's your turn, Angel Samariel. Start talking, because once I turn you over to our superiors, they'll clamp down on all of this, and I'll never find out what happened. How did the Third Way approach you? What did they offer you? Not they, Sam said after a moment. Kephas. The other name Temuel had given me, along with the Magians. Never heard of him, said Clarence. Sam shook his head. Not a him, necessarily. Just a disguised presence, not male, not female. A high-up angel, though, that's for sure. Kephas offered me a deal. Kephas means rock, I said, remembering what Fatback had told me. As in, on this rock I will build my church? Sam nodded. The higher angels, they like that old school stuff. Clarence snorted at this. Betraying heaven is old school? Sam gave the kid a cold look. You wouldn't know about it, Junior, but me and Bobby saw a lot of ugly stuff when we were in the harps. Stuff they don't teach you in the records department. Yeah, it was hell out there, Clarence interrupted. Spare me the justification, Sam. You didn't like what our superiors gave you to do, so you decided to find some nicer bosses. Sam shook his head again, not in negation, but in something more like resignation. It was our old top kicker, Leo, who first got me thinking, actually. He was always talking about the politics, the stuff going on behind the scenes, wondering who was really in charge. Another paranoid. But Clarence sounded like he might be trying to convince himself more than us. Said the undercover spy to his ex-partner. Sam forced a sour grin. After a while, what Leo said began to make sense. Whoever's really in charge, they don't seem to have our interests at the top of their priority list. I couldn't ignore that any longer. And then Leo died. The real death, the final kind. I didn't think it was an accident. Still don't. Maybe I said a few things afterward that drifted around upstairs, I don't know. Whatever tipped them off, the Third Way group found me. Kephas was their representative, and she, whatever it was, asked me if I wanted to do something to make heaven better. Sam then repeated most of the stuff I'd already heard in Walker's quasi-suicide letter about the Third Way. Their belief in the need for an alternative to heaven and hell, their willingness to try to do something about it. They weren't ready to move yet. This was years ago, but I couldn't take being in the Harps any longer. He turned to me. It was beginning to feel like a lie, Bobby. All that talk about how we were the only bulwark against hell's evil on earth, but there we were doing all that awful shit. Don't apologize, I said. I might have listened too, but I wasn't certain about that. I don't like chaos. I don't like secrets. And I sure as hell didn't like the idea of people as powerful as Corral and his friends being angry at me. So I quit the Harps, Sam went on. Took an informal leave of absence, and for a while I just, sort of bummed around. Settled here in San Judas and tried to figure out what I was doing. Made friends, mortal friends even. One of them was Reverend Habari. The tone of Sam's voice said this was important to him. I really wish you'd known him, Bobby. He was a good man, truly good. He wasn't just a community political activist. He would take in homeless folk and feed them and let them stay until he could get them into a shelter. He marched in all the marches, but he also stayed up late supervising the night basketball league in Sierra Park. Visited shut-ins, read to sick folks, and then he got cancer and died. And all I could think was, and that's the end of a good man. He's gone. What do you mean? Clarence sounded outraged. He died. If he was as good as you say, then he went straight to heaven. Sam's voice rose. For what? To become what? Our masters have made certain we don't know anything for sure, kid. The only angels we know are like us, ciphers with their memories wiped, working for the man down here on earth or our bosses in heaven. Is that what happened to Moses Habari? They just erased everything and started him over like us? Or is he one of those poor fools square dancing in the fields of the blessed with about as much of his personality left as a psychiatric patient pumped full of happy drugs? It's not like that. The barrel of Clarence's needle gun wavered, but he kept it on Sam. We're angels. We work for God. Well, see, that's something I'm not as sure about as you, son. All that stuff you used to ask me, why this, why that? Well, I asked those questions for real. In fact, I'm not sure if we're working for God the highest or for somebody else entirely. That's enough, Clarence said. I don't need to hear any more blasphemy, Sam. I'm sorry. You're a good man. I really believe that, but you're no angel. Not anymore. It's time for you to come back to heaven. Maybe you can get some help. I had distanced myself from Sam, in part just to make it harder for Clarence to shoot both of us, and as I moved closer to the kid, I said, Not yet, please. Not until I find out what happened to the souls they took. Did it work, Sam? Did you find a place to hide them where they'd be safe? That was the hard part, he admitted. We couldn't stash souls on Earth without somebody noticing, but the Tartarian convention set things up so that at the very least a high-ranking angel and an equally high-ranking demon had to agree on making any new territory outside the earthly bounds, no matter how small. My third way bosses had other recruits like me, and they were ready to fit us all out with fake identities and fake bodies. I probably should have just invented a name, but I wanted to pay back Dr. Habari, at least in a small way. He trailed off. Anyway, apparently the Third Way folk got a tip that Grand Duke Eligor might make a deal, for reasons of his own that I don't know. And he did. As Sam had been talking, I moved a little closer to Clarence, and now I quietly slipped my empty gun out of my belt. So, because of that deal, we had our sight. Sam finished. It exists. It's real. I punctuated this fascinating revelation by hitting Clarence hard on the base of the skull with my gun butt. The kid didn't even make a noise, just dropped like a sack of apples. I didn't want to kill him, although I had no doubt that if I did, he'd be resurrected again post-haste by our bosses. But I wasn't going to stand there and see Sam get dragged off either. At least not until I'd heard the rest of the story. I took the smooth little needle gun out of Clarence's hand, then turned back to my oldest friend. Okay, Sammy, I said. It's just the two of us now. Convince me. Convince you of what? That it works? That's easy. Follow me. I stopped to check Clarence's breathing, then turned him onto his side so if he puked, he wouldn't choke on it. Not a good way to go, even if you're getting shunted into another body afterward. How hard did you hit him? Sam asked as we made our way out past the outdoor pools. He'll be out for a while, but I don't think the damage will be permanent. Glad to hear it. I kind of liked him. At first I thought he was too obvious an outsider to really be a plant. They double bluffed you, I said. Temuel got me that way too. Does that mean he was in on Clarence? Maybe. Or maybe the mule didn't find out that Clarence was actually working for some of the higher-ups until after he asked you to keep an eye on the kid. It's always wheels within wheels, B. Heaven is one sneaky bastard, all right. We fell silent as we made our way up the Grand Promenade, toward Maryland and its ruined attractions, as if we were two souls traveling not to some new third destination, but floating through good old limbo, out of time, out of space. I wondered if Sam and I would ever walk side by side this way again. And no more meals at Boxer Rebellion? Really? I had no idea what I was going to do next. I didn't really want to think about it. The moon was still hanging around, silvering the rusted remains of the coiling super snake and the collapsed stalls of various attractions. This time, with nothing trying to suck my head off, I was able to appreciate the weirdness of the place. You notice I didn't say the weird beauty of the place. Shoreline Park might be many things, but beautiful is not one of them. But it smelled better out here at the north end, so either the sea breezes kept the air cleaner on this side of the island, or the derelicts couldn't be bothered to come all this way just to take a dump. Either way, it made a pleasant change. The peeling facade of some kind of game booth grinned as we passed. It might have been a clown's head once, but now it was only two smears for eyes and a rictus smile of which only the lipless teeth remained. So, if you didn't know it was me posing as Habari, Sam said abruptly, how did you know about the cemetery? I got some help from Fatback. He told me that Habari had died, and when he told me Habari was buried in the very graveyard you used to take me to all the time, well, it seemed like a pretty long coincidence. Plus, I'd already picked up on at least one of the lies you told me. There were a bunch. Which one? That made me feel sadder than I would have expected. When you came to my room at the Ralston last night, you said you called Alice and she told you the room number. But I did call her. I'm not stupid, Bobby. Yeah, but she gave you the wrong room number. She told me about it. She was feeling bad because she assumed you wouldn't be able to find me. But of course you only asked her for show. Kephas, or whoever, told you where I was, right? He only nodded, looking ahead now. I was putting things together. I had guessed that the angelic powers Habari had demonstrated to Edward Walker meant that one of the key players in the whole thing was probably local, since Habari, the Magian, worked out of the storefront on East Charleston. There just aren't that many folks with halos in San Judas, so I had begun to think it almost had to be someone I knew, as proved by the way Habari had reacted when we'd passed each other in our cars. He had recognized me immediately, even through my cuts, bruises, and bandages. But I'd gotten too fancy, and instead of looking right next to me for Habari's identity, I'd made the leap to wondering whether Leo the Loke might have faked his own death. What about the bodies, Sam? He turned, startled. What bodies? The ones you and the other Magians must have worn. After all, you couldn't ordinarily pass for an African clergyman, Sam. Oh, the Third Way gave us those. They're a little less functional, but a lot easier to enter and leave than the regular earthbound bodies heaven hands out. I got the Habari bodies stashed away in a safe house, but I can't give you the location, Bobby, or the body. I'll need everything I can trade to plead down my sentence with the bosses. Hey, maybe I'll get off with a couple of million years in the fiery pit. Now I felt queasy. He knew as well as I did that it wouldn't be anything like that simple. How could I have been so badly fooled by my best friend? And what was I going to do about him? So now, after landing me in the shit, you're going to sell out the Third Way too? Shit, Bobby, that was supposed to be a joke. No, the truth is, I'm not giving you the safe house and the Habari body because I want the Third Way to have a chance to clean it up and hide their tracks from the upstairs boys. I never wanted this to happen to you, but I believe in what they're doing. I'm not giving the Ephorate anything. What did you think that day you bumped into me in front of the Magian Society office? Sam didn't look around. Startled the crap out of me. I should have recognized you by your ride. Now he did turn. What are you talking about? I wasn't driving my own car. Yeah, but no other angel would be seen dead in an old beater like that. You never cared about cars, Sam. Crazy Town, the fun house, stood just in front of us. It actually still had a roof and most of its walls, but that was about it. The plaster of Paris spooks and clowns had eroded from the walls, leaving only spectral outlines and the occasional disembodied foot or hand or ear. What remained had been decorated with day-glow spray paints in a variety of runic designs that meant something only to the taggers themselves. But now even the graffiti was fading, rapidly becoming another piece of the past. As we crunched toward the building over a litter of broken bottles, I was glad I hadn't managed to kick my shoes off while I was in the water with the Galu. The wounds the creature had given me were beginning to heal, thanks to my angelic constitution, but I was still injured, aching, bloody, and very, very depressed. It's in here, he said. The door to the Third Way. I frowned. There's only one door? You have to come out here each time? He shook his head. No, the physics of the thing, if it even is physics and not just some crazy heaven magic, is weird. There's not that many spots you can get into this new place we've made. One of those spots is here, but it's not the only one. There used to be another door, or whatever you'd call it, in the Magian Society office, which is one of the reasons I had to go back that time you saw me. I had to shut it down before you or anyone else found it. And if Clarence was tracking your movements, that's probably how he figured out about you and Habari. I talked to you both about who I'd seen, and if he knew you had gone there about the same time I did, if he or his superiors had any suspicions, that would have sure helped confirm them. He hesitated. Do you really want to see this, B? It might change things for you. I stood trying to figure out what he was really saying. It might, I said at last, but then again, it might not. He smiled, and I saw once more the familiar Sam, the Sam I'd known for so long. Look, I just want to say that it really felt like shit having to lie to you all this time, Bobby. But except for the Third Way stuff, everything else I've ever told you, everything else we've been through, was real. The truth. I know that, Sam, or at least I'm willing to believe it. I gestured with the needle gun. Now, show me your secret. Please, don't do anything stupid. He turned on his flashlight and led me into the abandoned funhouse. We didn't go far, just down some steps to the hall of mirrors. Because they were metal, not glass, most of the mirrors were still in their frames, but the distorted images that had amused so many generations of park visitors were almost completely obliterated by rust and scratches. "Third mirror from the left," Sam said. "And straight on till morning. Show me." "I'm going to reach into my pocket. Do me a favor and don't dart me, okay?" He produced a faint shimmer of something. It could have been a tangle of spider webs glistening in the moon's misty glow, but the only light was the dim flashlight in Sam's other hand. He opened his palm, and the shimmer spread over it, then kindled into a light so bright that I blinked and stepped back. "Don't," I said, pointing with the gun. "No worries." Sam held up his blazing hand and drew a line with his index finger down the air in front of the mirror. A zipper appeared, or something that would have been a zipper had it been more sharply defined. A cloud of radiance, a miniature nebula appearing 3 feet off the ground in the middle of Crazy Town. "Kephas gave this gauntlet to me," he explained. "It's how I could take a living mortal like Edward Walker outside, through a zipper, and manage a lot of other stuff. Duplicates the powers of the higher angels, I guess. I don't know what it is or how it works. I just call it the God Glove." Sam gestured again, and the misty light dispersed, leaving a soft focus hole in the center of the mirror. I could see objects and colors there, like one of those little scenes inside a sugary Easter egg. "I'll step back," he said. "I swear I won't try anything. Just look." I trusted him, but of course I also didn't trust him, so as I leaned forward, I kept the dart gun pointing in Sam's general direction. It wasn't like looking at an image. What I saw had depth, another world beyond the scuffed, rusted mirror. I saw oak and willow trees and a stream, and when I bent a little closer, a ramshackle Victorian house perched on a hill in the distance at the end of a long dirt road. I fancied I could even see a couple of tiny figures standing on the porch, perhaps looking back at me. I wondered if one of them was Edward Lyons Walker. "Is that it?" I said, unexpectedly touched by the modesty of the rustic scene. "That's your great alternative to heaven and hell? The little house on the prairie?" "That's the beginning," Sam said. "But it'll get bigger. It will get more real. There's only a few hundred souls there now, but it will grow, even without me. Kephas recruited lots of other angels. We may even know some of them." I filed that thought away for later. "And you really think this is going to be better than what we've already got?" "If we can make it that way, yes." He sounded sincere, almost stupidly sincere. "You know, you could be there too, Bobby. I know you've thought about the same things I have. I know you get tired of all the secrets and the other nasty shit we've had to do." "Yeah, thanks." I straightened up. "But I'm not quite ready to drink that Kool-Aid. Not yet." I was bone weary, and Clarence would be regaining consciousness soon. "Go on. Get out of here, Sam." He stared. "Wait, you mean..." "Yes, I mean, get the hell out of here. Go join your crazy friends and build your little afterlife commune. Better you than me. I'll tell them you got away. They'll never believe you. That I screwed up again. They'll fall over themselves in their hurry to believe that." I winced a little at the thought of what General Corral was going to make of my newest dazzling failure. "Go on, I'm not going to beg you." But instead of stepping through the misty portal, he turned and came toward me. For a moment, I was terrified he was going to hug me. I'm not afraid of being hugged, mind you. Not too much. But the idea of Sam doing the hugging was like the idea of your parents making love. It might actually happen occasionally, but you didn't want to be a witness. Luckily, he stopped a little out of embracing range. "Hold on," he said. "I have to give you something before you go. Now, don't get your undies in a bunch, B, but I have to reach into your pocket." "My pocket?" I began, but he had already slipped the glowing, God-gloved hand into my jacket pocket. I could feel it against me like a hot stone. A moment later, he straightened up again and transferred whatever he'd found to his other hand and held it out. For several seconds, I couldn't do anything but stare. It was an astonishing thing, as amazing in its own way as anything else he had shown me. It was a golden feather. The feather, obviously, but it was just as clearly not of this world. It glowed and sparkled, not like a window display of jewelry, but with an inner light that made it seem more real, more present than anything else around, most definitely including me, Sam, and the door into Third Waysville. What? Okay, it wasn't my sharpest moment. How did that get there? It's been there all along, sort of. He laughed. You remember that night with the lady who drove into the bay? Clarence's first night. When you got into a fight with Howling Fell? Some fight, I said. I stomped him like a grape. Well, when Grasswax was pulling Howling Fell off you, I saw him slip something into your pocket. I couldn't imagine what a prosecutor would be planting on you, and I knew Howling Fell worked for Eligor, the other party in, he indicated the rustic view, my little project. I thought it might be some kind of frame-up or something. I only realized when I touched it what it was, so I decided to hide it. With this. He lifted the God glove and displayed it like he was modeling a Lady Bulova on a shopping channel. I made a little piece of outside right there in your pocket while I was dusting you off, and I put the feather in it. It's been there all along, but nobody could reach it because it also wasn't there, if you know what I mean. Sorry if it got you into trouble, but it was a spur-of-the-moment improvisation. Which must have been why my weird friend Foxy could smell something that wasn't there. So Grasswax was actually telling the truth? I said. At least as he knew it? That's one for the books, huh? I reached out and carefully took the smoldering golden thing from Sam. It lay in my palm with no weight at all, but it did not waver or move even as I swayed my hand from side to side. It was hard to look at anything else. And do you know who this belongs to? Who made the deal with Eligor? Kephis, as far as I know. Whoever or whatever that is. He gestured for me to take it. You can do whatever you want with it. Give it to our bosses if it'll keep you out of trouble. But if Eligor kept it to blackmail... But if Eligor kept it to blackmail this Kephis, our bosses could probably trace it. Sam shrugged. It doesn't matter. Our thing is too big now. It's already rolling. Me, Kephis, we could lose dozens more and the idea would still go on. I thought about it. Put it back in my pocket with the God glove. I don't want to have to hide it somewhere ordinary. You sure? He lifted it in his glowing hand. I felt the warmth through my coat as he put it back. Okay, now go. Get out of here. He turned toward the funhouse mirror, then paused, looking at me over his shoulder. I couldn't read his expression. Stay in touch, Bobby. How? I'd almost said why, but although I still didn't quite know how I felt about him and what he'd done, I knew I'd miss him. We'll figure something out. And then he stepped into the mirror. The hole closed behind him, so I didn't get a chance to watch him go, but I'm guessing he walked up that long road like a man finally going home. I started back toward the Kingsport plunge. As I patted my pocket to make sure the feather was undetectable, I discovered something else nestled there already. Howling Fell's phone. It had got very wet, as I had too, but like me, it was still functioning. So I rang the last number Howling Fell had called. Someone picked up but didn't speak. Still, I was pretty sure I knew who was listening on the other end. "Guess what?" I said. "That whole mission accomplished thing? A bit premature, as it turned out." I looked up at the sky, which was beginning to cloud over, shrouding the moon. I was tired of being wet, so I walked a little faster. "But what I really wanted to tell you was that I do have the feather. And if you fuck with me or anyone I care about, do you understand? I'm going to use it as proof when I tell your hell buddies about the deals you've been making with heaven. Is that clear? Oh, and tell the Countess that I'll see her again. That's a promise." I didn't wait to see if Eligor would respond. I just threw the phone as far as I could, then listened until I heard it hit and shatter somewhere in the shadows. I knew that what I'd said was true. I was going to find Kaz. I was going to find her even if I had to go to hell and yank her out of Eligor's arms to do it. I was going to free her so that someday she could stand in front of me and at least tell me honestly how much of what we'd had was real. I wasn't going to rest until I knew the answer. Clarence was sitting up when I got back to the pool, dabbing at his mouth with his sleeve. He'd obviously thrown up, but otherwise he didn't look too bad. "What happened?" "To Sam? He got away when you went down, I'm afraid." "No, what happened to me? What hit me?" "The Galu must have had a reflex twitch. Got you with its tail. Knocked you silly." Clarence squinted at the monster's corpse, which was already beginning to turn into sludge, little rivers of gray and black trickling away into the cracks between the tiles. "That thing doesn't have a tail." "Its leg, then?" "Doesn't matter. Come on, let's see if your ride is still waiting. I'm too tired to walk all the way back home." He asked for his dart gun, but I didn't give it to him. He made a face at me like an angry third grader. "You better start trusting me, Bobby. We're on the same side." "Trust you?" I laughed. "Kid, you tried to arrest my best friend, and you hacked my phone." "It was nothing personal," he protested. "I was doing my job." He gave me a significant look. "I don't have to tell them anything except what I learned about Sam and the Third Way. Everything else is your own business, including your pal, the Countess." It was friendly blackmail, but it was still blackmail. "Where did you come from anyway, kid?" I asked him. "Where did they find a piece of work like you?" "Took me right out of records because they knew you and Sam would be too suspicious of anyone with a background more like yours." "A competent background, you mean?" "Yeah, well, they definitely fooled me, I'll admit it. But I'll decide for myself whether we're on the same side. You're still on probation with me." Clarence was outraged. "Probation? You're the one who should have to prove yourself to me. You let Sam get away." I tucked his needle gun into my pocket. "Yeah, kid, but you're the one who got your skinny ass kicked by something I'd already killed." And with that, we've got, I think, one more longish chapter to read, but I don't think I'm going to try and read that tonight. I think I'm going to try and finish that up next weekend. So, slightly early, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight because, as always, I cannot plan these things in advance in terms of time. And so I never know exactly how long it's going to take to read or whatever. Anyway, however, I beg your forbearance on me not finishing tonight, but it wouldn't work that way, and cutting out slightly early. However, if anybody wants to ask me anything or say anything or whatever, I can hang around. I'm not trying to hurry out of here. I just don't want to read anymore tonight. Oh, wait, I've got to mark that so I know where I stopped. Okay. Anyway, so I am very much enjoying reading Bobby Dollar again. I think I've said in the past a few different times that one of the reasons that I enjoyed it writing it was because it was a way to write in something closer to my normal voice, because so much of my time, especially writing fantasy, the Ostenard books, the Shadow March books, long sections of the Otherland books, I am effectively writing in a non-modern vernacular of some kind. And one of the reasons that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing that very much. And I think I do it fairly well. But what are the sequels called? Oh, okay, Ivan, I will tell you in just a second. But it was really fun when I started the Bobby Dollar books, because it was the closest. Bobby is not literally me, obviously. I am nowhere near as heroic or dangerous or quite as blindly willing to rush into things. But his sense of humor certainly, obviously, is mine, such as it is. And his way of looking at the world and his sort of bemused cynicism and his way of talking is very much me as well. So I really enjoyed that. That was great fun. Now, here's a question, since I'm almost done. Ivan said, let me ask, what are the sequels called? The sequels, there's 2 sequels. It altogether makes one book that you can read each one separately if you want to, but the whole Bobby, Eligor, Casimira, Sam, everybody story actually goes through all 3 books and resolves by the 3rd volume. I would like to write another one someday. But anyway, so the second book, this one was The Dirty Streets of Heaven. The second book is called Happy Hour in Hell. I want to ask something about that in a second. And the third is called Sleeping Late on Judgment Day. And Mark, very kind Mark, thank you. Mark mentions God rest ye merry gentle pig, I believe the story is called, which is the Christmas story featuring Bobby and Nazi Santa and a werepig. So yeah, that's another one too. But that's a longish short story, which maybe I'll read again this year for Christmas, because I haven't read that since I think the first Christmas that we did this, some 4 years ago. Anyway, so anyway, that's the name of the stories, and I'd be interested in knowing if anybody, because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do next once we finish this book. And one of the things I could do, if you could stand the ongoing horror of it, I really like Happy Hour in Hell, and for a variety of reasons. But it's a tough book, because hell is not a fun place, and Bobby actually visits it. But I could read that if people wanted to. So let me know what you think about that as another thing to read. As I mentioned, there are many. I read first volumes of many things of mine. If anybody wants me to continue reading, I will look for non-Tad things, but I will also look for Tad things that I could read, and that's the second volumes of most of the things that I already read. I read the first Otherland, so I could read River of Blue Fire. I read the first Shadow March, so I could read Shadow, what's it? I don't remember. They all have names. Shadow Heart? No, that's near the end. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Or I could read the Happy Hour in Hell, or I could read Stone of Farewell, or, anything. So just let me know. And I will be back next weekend. We will probably finish it off the first night, but that's all I know for now. So again, let me say thank you so much for spending time with me. I do always appreciate it. It's a real boost to the morale to know there's a few people out there who actually want to hear stuff that I have to say and stuff that I have to read. Those of you that I already know personally, I already know are fine human beings. The rest of you have made it very clear, the ones I have not met yet, that I would enjoy meeting you and that you too are fine human beings. So with that, I say take good care of yourselves. You are very important. That's the first step. You got to take care of yourself. Then you take care of your friends, your loved ones, your family. And you keep an eye out for those who might need a little help, even if it's only just a kind word, a smile. Sometimes just smiling at a stranger if you don't do it in a crowded New York street where they might be a crazy person. But most of the time, it's okay to smile at a stranger. Anyway, so with that, I just want to say peace. Be well, all of you. You Canadians, yes, go vote. Go vote. Voting is important, and people are trying to prevent us from voting these days. So it's a good time to exercise your franchise. And yeah, with that, I say Ciao bambini. Ciao ragazzi. And hasta luego. Hasta la próxima. And I will see you very soon. So, a biento.